Chapter 1 Pentacle. A brilliant golden light bloomed in the distance. In the far distance, there was only a point, and gradually, it turned into a line. When this light flashes completely, the gorgeous golden color becomes an eternal brilliance. It's like lighting up the whole world. So gorgeous. The universe is vast and endless. Golden lightning flashed past, dragging out a long flame tail. A figure stood among them, actually controlling the speed of lightning. After an unknown amount of time, the lightning suddenly stopped. The man waved his hand, and the arcs that had been lingering around his body quickly passed away like gas, or were hidden on the surface of the body without being released. This is an extremely handsome man with a pair of soulful eyes that make countless beauties bow. He is very good-looking. However, at this time, these eyes revealed the slightest trace of worry. He lowered his head with a faint smile on his lips. It turned out that there was a baby in his arms. The little person had snow-white skin. He was looking at the man holding him with his eyes open and started giggling. "Wow, brother-in-law, I had a hard time escaping, but you are happy. But it's not over yet. These guys are coming soon." Just as the man stretched out his hand to gently tease the child, 5 streams of light also shot out not far away and stopped not far away, revealing 5 of the figures. These people were both men and women, and they were dressed in different ways. Although there were only 5 of them, they had the atmosphere of killing gods when they stand in the way, and killing Buddha when they stand in the way of Buddha. Anyone who dared to stop them would be killed with one punch. A burly man standing in the middle took a step forward. He crossed his arms, and his powerful aura instantly spread out. He glanced contemptuously at the handsome man in front of him, but his eyes stayed on the child in his arms. Then he laughed sinisterly. This strange laughter was extremely inconsistent with his tall and powerful body, but it unabashedly revealed his greed at the moment. "Tingyun, hand over the child in your hands, and I will keep you safe." The first person to speak was not the leading man, but an enchanting beauty behind him. She giggled. "You are a handsome young man after all. Why not stay with your sister?" Haha. The corners of the man's mouth named Tingyun raised slightly. "You can pull me down. You are an old witch. You still want an old cow to eat tender grass." "You," the enchanting woman snorted coldly, "you don't know how to appreciate someone." The next moment, she squeezed the sword technique with her right hand, and a sword energy was shot out. It was so sharp that it easily tore apart the space and shot straight towards Tingyun. Little trick, Tingyun thought, and a golden arc of electricity immediately popped out, arriving first. The electric arc collided with the sword energy, but there was no big explosion as everyone imagined. On the contrary, with just one contact, the sword energy was directly swallowed by the arc, and the difference in strength between the two sides was evident. This is not over yet. The golden arc of electricity continues unabated and continues to shoot towards the enchanting woman. The woman frowned slightly and subconsciously retreated behind the burly man in the middle. "Drink." Upon seeing this, the burly man roared and punched out. The knotted muscles on his arm rhythmically beat and collided with the golden arc. Bang! The burly man took a step back, holding his right hand tightly, staring at the indifferent man in front of him. He never expected that the arc of electricity shot by the other party could force him back. The #1 master under the throne of Nirvana is well-deserved. Haha, the alien demons are nothing more than that, Tingyun said indifferently. The other 3 people around the burly man were about to take action, but he stopped them. "I admit that I am not your opponent in a fight, but you have to recognize the reality. There is no way you can escape from the hands of our 5 gods today. Hand over the child in your hands, and I will ensure that you leave safely." Oh, god level. A group of demigods dare to call themselves god level. Your father and I don't even dare to call ourselves god level. Tingyun said with a smile. "Okay, stop talking nonsense, and stop delaying time. Brother, let's go together. I still don't believe that he won't hand over the prince today." Another man holding a spear said, "Or you can try to keep running." "Why are you running? Which of your eyes saw me running away? You were stupid to begin with, but now your eyes are broken. Alas." Tingyun sighed. "You're brave enough. I've long been unhappy with you, this pretty boy. Take the move." Finally, The man let out a loud roar, and then brandished his spear and attacked Ting Yun. Ting Yun smiled ferociously, his eyes as fierce as ice, devoid of any emotion, and the laziness he had before was no longer the same, replaced by endless killing. Boom. At this moment, a huge river emerged from the endless void. The waves rolled, and the water surged, suddenly covering the space of 100 miles around the 5 people. What's going on? Is there a water demigod hiding there? The enchanting woman from before asked in surprise. This is not a real water element. It is a thunder explosion condensed with extremely rich thunder power, the burly man yelled. After all, he is the leader of the 5 and has the most experience. From the occasional wisps of electric current flowing out of the water flow, he can still tell that it is pure thunder concentrated to the extreme. But so what if they recognized him, not to mention it was him? When they heard this, the other 4 people's faces turned pale. They all understood what the seemingly warm water in front of them meant. They never expected that Ting Yun, who was usually unobtrusive, could actually do this. In one step, such a huge thunderstorm has even condensed into water. How powerful it must be to compress it to the extreme. If the control is not good, the first person to be killed will be himself. Is this really something that a demigod-level powerhouse can do? And it was performed all at once. No need to accumulate energy? Yes, is it really not necessary? The answer must be no. Ting Yun smiled disdainfully. He really thought that I had been running with you for so long just for running and exercising, hee. It is not easy to arrange such a field that can obliterate 5 demigod-level masters. When I escaped, I prepared it on the route. Bah, how can this be called an escape? It is obviously a strategic move, he thought to himself. Boom, the destructive thunder struck down with unstoppable force. 1, 2, 3, covering the 5 people. But after all, as demigod-level masters, the 5 of them also possess the power to destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, all kinds of power erupted from their bodies, blocking and resisting the thunder. Ting Yun looked at the embarrassed 5 people jokingly, holding the child in one hand, and holding the child up from his dantian with the other hand. In an instant, a huge light and shadow appeared behind him, which was made up of thousands of thunders intertwined. The gorgeous thunder light illuminated the endless void. Ting Yun exhaled a breath of turbid air, and his originally dark pupils were now golden, and golden thunder surged out from around him. Tell you, Demon King, I will take your lives if you can go back. He smiled evilly, pushed out with a palm, and the huge figure condensed by countless golden thunders behind him immediately transformed into a huge mouth, with sharp teeth clearly visible, and it quickly devoured the 5 recalcitrant people. There seemed to be screams one after another in the thunder abyss. For a long time, the terrifying power of thunder gradually calmed down with a loud explosion. The thunderstorm passed by, leaving nothing behind. It was hard to imagine that there were 5 demigods standing here not long ago. 5 kills, that's awesome, Ting Yun said excitedly. It was the first time in his life that he had killed 5 demigods, and he did it all by himself. He was indeed proud of himself. At this time, Ting Yun was also a little pale. It was not easy even for him to use such a huge power of thunder, but fortunately he succeeded. He licked his mouth excitedly, licked his right hand, brushed his scattered hair, and said, "Hey, the head can be broken, the blood can flow, and the hair can't be messed up." Then he reached out to touch the pink cheek of the child in his arms. "Don't you think so, brother-in-law?" Unexpectedly, the child in his arms waved his little pink palm with a look of disgust and slapped Ting Yun's hand away. Ting Yun was silly and happy, and didn't mind. He turned around and continued to run with his child. However, strong lights suddenly hit him. Ting Yun subconsciously covered his eyes with his hands. The sudden bright light made him feel a little uncomfortable. After about a few seconds, he slowly removed his hand. A huge group of battleships came across the space. They were the top battleship groups belonging to another world. The thick gun barrels locked him in all directions without blind spots. The light condensed at the muzzle showed that they were charging. He could imagine that once these black tubes were prepared, he would be beaten into a sieve immediately. He swallowed silently and felt a little dry. He looked helplessly at the baby in his arms, then at the group of battleships, and murmured, This is embarrassing. The next moment, dense energy rays overwhelmingly enveloped the thin figure in front. Chapter 2 Thunder. Ah, I exclaimed. Jiang Yeren suddenly sat upright on the bed, exhaling a long breath, and the sweat on his back actually wet his pajamas. It's this nightmare again. Why do I always have dreams like this lately? Who is the man named Ting Yun in the dream? Why can't I always see his face clearly? This is not the first time that a series of questions have come to mind. But then Jiang Yeren felt funny for no reason and stretched out his hand to scratch his short snow-white hair. Yes, it's just a dream. How can the person in the dream remember what it looks like? Rumble. Through the window, he clearly saw a golden lightning streaking across the night sky, slowly dissipating and turning into dots of brilliant light, which was truly magnificent. Who Taoist friend is here to survive the tribulation, he thought to himself. I looked at my watch and saw that it was already past 6 o'clock in the morning. Due to the heavy rain, dark clouds were shrouded. Even though it was September, it was still dark. Unable to sleep, Jiang Yeren was rolling around on the bed. Suddenly, a small, warm, unknown object suddenly penetrated into his arms, causing his chest to itch, but he did not resent the sudden appearance of the small figure. Of course, he knew who ran into his bed. In the darkness, Jiang Yeren gently hugged the warmth in his arms, feeling the other person's trembling body, and murmured to himself, "It's just thunder. Don't be afraid. I'm here." An hour later, the thunder gradually subsided, and the rainy night finally passed. A ray of dawn swept away the darkness of the night, illuminating a short snow-white hair that looked extremely soft. Today is the first day of school. You can't be late. As soon as I thought this in my mind, I got out of bed quietly. She was still sleeping soundly on the bed, and the early morning sunlight shone on the bed, covering her snow-white body like the most beautiful suet jade, which made people want to hold it in the palm of their hands and play with it. Seeing the quilt she kicked off, the boy couldn't help laughing. After getting dressed, he thoughtfully covered her with the quilt. "Master, breakfast has been prepared for you." The voice came from behind him, and it was a holographic projection. Jiang Yeren immediately turned around and made a silence gesture, and then whispered, "Okay, Mr. Justin, I will be there in a minute." He turned back and knew that Justin's holographic image had dissipated without looking. Just looking at her lying on the bed, I felt warm and caring in my chest. He kissed the smooth forehead, straightened up, and left the bedroom full of nostalgia. The moment he left, he couldn't help but look back with a doubting look. "Yemo, I'm leaving." Then he turned around and left. The door closed gently, and she slowly opened her eyes on the bed, revealing a pair of blue eyes, which were smart and bright. But those pupils were a pair of vertical pupils, twinkling with a little bit of reluctance. He broke free from the quilt, jumped up, and lay down generously in the middle of the big bed, under the sun. Not a single hair was found on her snow-white hair. Yi Emo stared at the closed door for a long time before calling out softly, "Meow." At the same time, on the other side, somewhere in the cold Arctic, the snow wind is howling and rolling all over the sky. There is absolutely no artistic conception of first love with snowflakes flying all over the sky, but only a cruel and cold reality. Even the locals would never dare to go out in this windy and snowy day, otherwise it would mean death. Ho, ho, ho. The beast's roar carried the blizzard and was blown far away by the wind. A snow-white afterimage flashed away, leaving only broken footprints on the ground. It was a huge snowfield bear, with rough skin and thick flesh, not to mention immense strength. This kind of giant bear could fly an adult with just a sneeze. Lions and tigers were appetizers. If there were lions and tigers on the snowfield, let alone a mutated snowfield bear that controlled the power of ice and snow, it was simply the level of a bear king. This kind of being who dominates a certain snowfield with his tyrannical power of ice and snow usually chases his prey. But now, when this bear king Sayatsi was racing wildly, not only was his pace messy, his breathing was heavy, but if you looked closely, there was a long wound on his back, which seemed to have been caused by a sharp sword. This bear is actually running for its life. It is being hunted. I don't know how long I ran. Despite the huge tonnage of the Bear King, the speed was unambiguous. It felt like flying. Just when he thought he had run far enough, he stopped and looked back, and found that no one was there. He sat down with a heavy breath, and even patted his rising and falling chest in a humane way, exhaling a long breath. "Stupid, why don't you run away?" A stream of light pierced the sky, tore through the wind and snow, and stuck directly into the snowdrift in front of the Bear King. It turned out to be a golden feather. The king bear, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, suddenly shuddered and tried to run with his hands and feet, but just as he started, another feather shot at him at a very fast speed. The king bear hurriedly stopped, and his brain was not pierced. Although he endured the beating, he did not dare to use his brain to test this seemingly soft feather. Before that, the terrible scar on his back was the work of this feather, because he was almost cut in half due to his carelessness. It swallowed hard and turned around to look at the wind and snow in the distance in fear. There was still the sound of whistling wind, and if it weren't for the two feathers that shot to the ground, it would be as if the scene just now had never happened. After a long time, a blurry figure slowly walked out of the wind and snow. The biting cold wind was unable to touch his body at all. Just blowing to his sides seemed to be blocked by an invisible wall of air. There even seemed to be a faint golden aura lingering around the figure, which not only blocked the cold wind, but also added a certain amount of holiness and mystery to the figure. The body-protecting energy is released. If someone sees it at this moment, they will definitely exclaim, and then take out their mobile phones to take photos and post them on WeChat Moments. For no other reason than to protect the body and release the chi outwards is a standard feature for all first-class masters. And looking at the whole of China, the first-class experts are only in double digits. As he walked in, the figure gradually became clearer. He was a boy of 17 or 18 years old, with extremely dazzling golden hair. His facial features were as delicate as a knife, and he had a three-dimensional beauty that ordinary people did not have. At this time, the charming peach blossom eyes were filled with golden brilliance, and the dyed pupils turned golden. A huge single wing on the back was bathed in holy light and folded behind the back. The white gold feathers covered the entire right shoulder. Although there was only one wing, there was no sense of disobedience at all. It is hard to imagine that such a young boy has broken through the bottleneck of first-rate masters and reached the realm that countless people dream of. Many people may not have the strength of second or third-rate masters throughout their lives, let alone first-rate masters. Most ordinary people have never even seen a first-rate master. After all, first-class masters are the country's elite, and they have an absolutely transcendent status no matter where they go. As for the super first-class masters, they exist strategically. The official has not announced the specific number of them. After all, the files of every superclass master are top secret, and what China has disclosed so far is only a handful. At this time, the corners of the boy's mouth raised, revealing a harmless smile. However, this seemed to be a nightmare in the eyes of the Bear King. Just looking at it once, it felt as if its blood was about to solidify. It roared desperately, its bloody eyes turned red, and ran towards the boy. The hopelessness of escaping inspired the bloody nature deep in its blood. Beasts are just beasts after all. The young man murmured lightly, holding his right hand gently in front of him. A golden energy light sword condensed, and then slashed at the Bear King with one sword. Plop. Along with the blood, a big bear's head fell to the ground, and its unyielding pupils reflected the fear of death. The young man stood up slowly, fluttered his wings, and then seemed to stretch. The golden lightsaber in his hand dimmed, and finally turned into a sliver of light and returned to himself. "You just killed it," a girl in purple behind the boy said in shock. "Calm down, Xueshi. This bear dominates the country and does all kinds of evil. He has killed countless humans who pass by here. There is no need for mercy." The young man shrugged casually, with indifference written all over his face, as if the killing just now had nothing to do with him. The girl named Xueshi was instantly furious. She waved her arms and grabbed the boy's shoulders, shaking her so hard that her waist-length purple hair was messy. "Chang Sun Jahan, you stinky kid, a waste of money. Your brain has not worked well since you were a child, and you have become even more mentally retarded when you grow up. Do you know how valuable the essence and blood of this Bear King would be if I refined it? You bastard actually cut off its head, and the essence and blood are all on the ground. How do you want me to use it? How to use it? How to use it? Changsun Jahan hurriedly broke away from Yin Xueshi. Although he didn't have to do this at all due to his strength, he still said with a blank look on his face, that's it. I don't know. You didn't tell me earlier. However, the endless wind and snow are still mixed with Yin Xueshi's angry roar. You still have my blood. Chapter 3 Celebrities. September is one of the most beautiful seasons in Tianqi City. Today, September 1st, is the first day of school again. In the early morning, Tianqi City seemed a bit crowded as office workers and students resumed work and study. In this first-tier city, there is the world-famous Tianqi College. Founded by the first generation of foreigners 1,000 years ago, it is the #1 institution of higher learning among the 6 foreign colleges in China. It contains thousands of years of cultural heritage and has passed down a long history from generation to generation. Every year, countless young, outstanding people graduate here. They either join the army or join various forces. And all the students who graduate from Tianqi College create amazing brilliance in the years that follow. As a result, every graduate is often the focus of major chaebols, groups, and even the country. At this time, the new school year has begun, and students are constantly walking towards the school gate in small groups. An orange-red Ferrari made a beautiful drift from a street not far away, accelerated in an instant, and arrived in front of Tianqi College amidst the roar of the engine. With a squeaking sound, another sudden brake stopped steadily at the gate of the school. This car is so cool. The sudden appearance of a top-notch supercar immediately caused a commotion in front of the school, and the students' eyes were attracted to it almost uncontrollably. Both boys and girls have fantasized about driving such a sports car. In fact, if you really want to talk about rich people, Tianqi College really has no shortage of them. After all, Tianqi College has always been a top private college in the alien world and is open to the public. The annual tuition fee alone can reach 100,000 yuan. It is often not something you can get into if you have money, but most of the people who can get in are from well-off families. The car door opened upward, and a 16-year-old boy stepped out of the car. He had snow-white hair, his hands were casually put in his trouser pockets, and his eyebrows showed a careless and lazy expression. His height of 1.78 meters, broad shoulders, and a faint smile on his face looked full of charm against the orange Ferrari. Ah, it's Jiang Yiren. Suddenly a girl screamed, and then another boy also exclaimed. Gradually, the surrounding students recognized this celebrity at the beginning of the school year, and for a while, there were shouts of surprise and a commotion broke out. The boy who got off the bus was naturally Jiang Yiren. He smiled, nodded to the boys and girls who were screaming and exclaiming, and then walked straight to the campus, not at all moved by the enthusiasm of the students, as if this was the way it should be. It really deserves to be called Tianqi Academy. Jiang Yiren secretly praised it. Although it has been renovated several times over the past thousands of years, it still gives people an antique feeling. In fact, when he heard his father say that he was going to go to school here, he was a little uneasy. You know, Tianqi College is the dream temple of countless students, but just having money is not enough. First of all, you have to be a different person. Secondly, in addition to the high school entrance examination scores accounting for 70%, there are also various inexplicable evaluation criteria accounting for 30%. As for why his standards are inexplicable, it is because they are different every year, even unbelievable. Some experts have predicted that you will be asked to walk around the earth this year, and some experts have given a final assessment that just drinks a glass of homemade watermelon juice. After all, there has been a precedent for people to drink grape juice. As for what condiments were added to the unknown black object, who knows? Anyway, according to the students who tasted it, the grape juice is clearly shit. And Jiang Yiren relied on this assessment to become a blockbuster, successfully debuted, and reached the pinnacle of his life. When this year's assessment standards came out, although he was not abnormal, his jaw dropped. He was able to recite one of the 7 internal force and mental techniques specified by the school within an hour. What is certain is that these 7 thoughts must not be the common stuff spread outside, otherwise it would be too unfair. But trying to memorize such an obscure and difficult scroll within an hour also stumped a group of freshmen. Despite this exam can be said to be a benefit given by the college to new students. After all, as long as they can memorize it properly, even the incomplete papers will benefit the students immensely in their future cultivation journey. But what people never expected was that an extremely cruel and vicious incident occurred during this assessment. While all the candidates were racking their brains and using their hands and feet to recite the difficult and blunt text in the dark, a boy named Jiang Yeren actually sat there playing King of Kings on his mobile phone with a lollipop in his mouth. When the invigilator frowned and was about to scold me, the white-haired boy suddenly stretched out his right hand, smoothed his hair in an exaggerated way, stared at the invigilator with a smile, and said, "Teacher, do you believe in 1 versus 5? The invigilator was about to have a fit, but when he was suddenly asked this question, he couldn't remember it for a moment. He instinctively pushed up his glasses and said, "I guess not." Jiang Yeren chuckled and said, "You'll have to wait and see." Then he directly challenged 5 in front of the invigilator and really got 5 kills. He still used Kai Huang, and the invigilator was stunned for a while. When the low 5 kills sounded, it also attracted the surrounding students. For a while, the candidates talked about it and called it awesome. Even the invigilator couldn't help but want to clap, but just before he clapped, he suddenly realized that this was an exam. Then the invigilator pushed up his glasses and coughed solemnly. Just as he was about to scold him, the white-haired boy in front of him suddenly sighed and said without hesitation, "Why are you sighing, knowing that there is not enough time to regret it? Let me tell you, I will definitely ensure that the assessment is fair and just. Don't try to take advantage of others." Alas. Jiang Yeren sighed softly, put down the phone, raised his head with a look of despair, and said sadly, "I am too strong, my opponent is too weak, and I am too boring." The invigilator's teeth suddenly started to itch, and his fists clenched, and he said bitterly, "Why are you pretending to be 13? Aren't you just a 5 killer? It's not like I haven't passed it before. Bah, this is an exam. You kid, please be serious, or I will disqualify you from the exam." Jiang Yeren sighed again, stood up, and said nonchalantly, "5 kills are really boring. Let's take the exam. I can pass it if I recite it to you now." The invigilator took a deep breath to calm down, frowned, and said, "The time is not up yet. Please memorize more quickly." Jiang Yeren, "No need, 1 hour is too long. It's been delayed for too long." Invigilator, "Then which article do you want to memorize?" Jiang Yeren casually flipped through the 7 fragments in his hand, then sorted them out, closed them, and placed them on the table. He waved his hand. "Let's do the 7 chapters together." In the next 15 minutes, the invigilator and the candidates in the same classroom all stared dumbfoundedly at this white-haired boy who was eloquent. He really memorized every word, and he was very familiar with the whole process without any pause. So, halfway through the memorization, the invigilators from several nearby examination rooms came to hear the news. If the 7 mental methods recited this time had not been sealed in the college's confidential files, they would have thought that the boy had memorized the mental methods in advance. In the end, the invigilators could only lament that this boy was really talented, while other candidates shouted that his fate was unfair. Why didn't I have a good brain with a photographic memory? In response to this, Jiang Yeren just sighed lonely and said, "This damn photographic memory makes the endorsement process completely unexperienced." Alas, this method is extremely cruel and inhumane. As a result, Jiang Yeren was lucky enough to be on the Tianxi College's top ranking list, which also made him a well-known person in this college. Walking around the campus, the air after the rain is filled with the fragrance of earth, mixed with a hint of late summer heat. Jiang Yeren took a gentle breath of air, showed an intoxicated look, waved goodbye to the driver who drove him, and then strode towards the dormitory with his head held high. The school is crowded with people, and everything you see is filled with the atmosphere of youth. The dormitory is not far from the school gate. Behind the dormitory is the teaching area, which is next to the cafeteria. In the words of the principal, the children have worked hard all day, and it is better to have a meal closer. What a considerate principal, Jiang Yeren suddenly thought of the cafeteria of his junior high school, which was so far away from the teaching building. Every time he had a meal, he had to sprint 100 meters there, running like a dog, and he might not necessarily outrun the junior students in the lower grades. After all, the higher the grade in his junior high school, the further away from the cafeteria. Alas, thinking about it now, Jiang Yiren was filled with tears of sadness. The dormitory areas are all four-story buildings, each one nearly 100 meters long and dozens of meters high. They are isolated from each other to ensure that the lowest floor has sufficient light in any season. Maybe it was because Jiang Yiren arrived relatively late, and because there were not many freshmen, the dormitory corridors seemed empty. He only occasionally met one or two classmates, but he was still preparing to leave the dormitory. Jiang Yiren quickened his pace. It seemed that he was indeed late. We walked to the door of dormitory 317, which was the innermost room in a row of dormitories. Beyond that was a large iron gate, blocking the way to the other side. In other words, there are 20 rooms on one floor, and there is an iron door in the middle. There are 10 rooms on the left and right. I don't know what the purpose of the iron door is. Jiang Yiren shook his head slightly, then took out the newly issued key, inserted it into the door lock, and turned the handle. However, the moment he turned the handle, an invisible wave quietly swept up and enveloped the door handle, but it disappeared in a flash and was difficult to detect. Pushing the door open, this is an ordinary four-person room with a bed and a table. It is about 30 square meters and is quite spacious. However, the empty bed shows that no other roommates have arrived in this dormitory except Jiang Yiren. Chatter around the pit. Today a girl from my hometown told me that people in Tianqi City and Tianqi College are prone to drama. I just want to say that Tianqi City is actually taken from my hometown Wuxi City. In addition, Tianqi College actually comes from two key high schools in Wuxi, Tianyi Middle School and Xishan Middle School. There is no way it is such a coincidence. So students who are prone to drama can just think of it as Wuxi University in Wuxi City. In the final analysis, I am too lazy to remember the name. Chapter 4 roommate. Jiang Yiren packed his luggage strangely. His roommates should have arrived too. Even if one of them had an accident and didn't arrive, he shouldn't have missed it. After all, the other students had already gone to the teaching building. Although he was confused in his heart, his hands were not idle. He gently touched the ring on the index finger of his right hand with his left hand. With his thoughts conveyed, pieces of clothes and sheets immediately flew out of the space ring and were spread neatly on a bed. China's latest technology, Space Neji, is derived from the meaning of Naksumi mustard seed. A simple ring can accommodate 10 cubic meters of space. It is an epoch-making product of space technology. Currently, there are not many rings on the market. They are often expensive and hard to find, and most of them only have 1 cubic meter of storage space. Jiang Yiren skillfully laid out 3 layers of sheets one by one, and then folded the quilt. He thought to himself, this is really troublesome. It's time to find himself a girlfriend. While thinking about it, he chuckled. With his thought in mind, a thin voice suddenly came from the toilet. The sound was very subtle at first, and gradually became clearer, making a swishing sound of water. What's going on? Is the toilet occupied? Just when Jiang Yiren was curious and wanted to walk to the toilet door opened automatically with a squeak, and there was a body in his sight.